when I started my political career, people had me characterized in one particular way. And even when I left office, some of my colleagues did this interview. A lot of them didn't, it wasn't intentional, but they all started out with, I didn't think I'd really get along with Carlton, but we became good friends. And it has just reminded me that how we treat one another, how we have respect for one another, how we respect difference of opinions has a profound impact on us.
Welcome to Motivational Monday, conversations with me, David Ibarra, and my special guest, Carlton Christensen, chairman of the Utah Transit Authority. Welcome.
Thank you, David. It's great to be with you.
Well, I want to dive right in and start talking about, I think the first time that I met you was when I moved to Salt Lake City, downtown from South Jordan in around 1999.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't mistaken, that's about the time that you were starting into politics, or you were a city council member for 16 years. Is that right?
Yeah, I got elected in 1997, and so I'd only been in politics a couple of years when that had happened, and it was certainly a great run and fun to see the transition of the city. 16
years. Is there anybody that's been a longer tenure in the city council than 16 years, to your knowledge?
Not on the city council. I had the city recorder go back and look, and the only person that had in any elected office in Salt Lake that had served longer than that went back to about 1865 or something like that. So
wow.
So for at least 100 plus years, that's been the longest tenure.
Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good service.
Yeah. That says that all the rest of those people are a lot more sane than I am. So,
well, but you were able to get reelected and reelected and reelected.
Yeah,
so you must have had some satisfaction.
Residents of District 1 were very supportive and complimentary.
Yeah. That's very good. Now, I want to get into, obviously UTA, but I want to do that in a minute. I'd like to go to the very beginning and what got you ready for a career in finance, in leadership, and just tell me how that all happened and what got you prepared to serve?
I owe a lot of credit to my parents. Both were self-starters. Mm-hmm. Both were engaged in the community. They raised us as kids to think for ourselves. My father died when I was 10 from cancer. So my mom took over kind of the head of the household, but was not afraid to empower me to try something new. And as I got older and as I grew in the community, I looked for opportunities to be. And I was very fortunate, I think, at a variety of times to be in the right position that allowed me to progress and to take advantage of an opportunity when it was presented to me.
Where did you get your formal education? Where did you go to?
So I have a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Utah. My degree is actually in history, although I spent 18 years in finance and accounting. But what history really taught me to do was to think broadly. Taught me how to write. Every email is really an essay exam, and how you respond to somebody matters. And so thinking that through and thinking what the long-term consequence, and to look further down the road, you see patterns in history that help you think about what you're presenting here and now.
It is so true. I read a book, Atomic Habits, and I'm reading it right now, and the title escapes me, but it talks about how we as a people have handled change, whether it's an EV car, electric car, whether it's the automobile in general, whether it's and how we resist change, even to the point of trying to mandate and legislate safety in what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
And it's just happened over and over again. We'd all be better served to read history.
We would, and when we see patterns in society, there are warning signs that would tell you that that's a bad road to go down, or if we thought about it this way, we might be able to solve a problem simpler than what we sometimes are faced with.
Well, we certainly seem to want to put our hand in the fire, even though we've been told it will burn.
Yeah, and history is more accurate than we give it credit for.
Right. So you graduate from the university. What do you do next?
Well, as I was approaching the end of it, I came to a pivotal point where I hadn't gotten upper division status in accounting. I'd done an audit internship for KPMG in the Boston area. I have a brother who's well-known, now deceased brother, my brother Carlton Christensen, who taught at the Harvard Business School. And Clayton said to me at that kind of key point, said about 20% of America's CEOs were history majors. It's just going to be tough for you to get that first job. So I graduated, and I happened to be working for a property management development company in Salt Lake, and they needed a construction cost accountant, which was the degree that I had been contemplating. So I went down that pathway. I thought I'll stay there for a little while. And I ended up staying in it for about 18 years, leaving my final position as an assistant controller. And then
at
a company called Zion Securities. They managed commercial properties for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then I went to Zion's Bank, and I spent my first 2 years there doing finance and analytics, and then decided I had a midlife crisis, and I changed positions within the bank, and eventually I, moved to when I was concluding my public service on the city council. Then Mayor Ben McAdams wanted to create a new department at Salt Lake County and asked me to come in.
And that was economic development?
It was economic development, housing, and transportation.
Right.
So it was quite a combination, and it was a great opportunity to try to bring some different areas of the county government together and to add some new aspects to it. And I thought I'd be there for a long time until this position at UTA came available.
Well, I remember now, you just clicked a memory with me, as I was part of the interview team
for that position. And I wanted it to be non-political. We had two candidates that committee had recommended. Right. I went home on a Friday night. I drafted a letter for Mayor McAdams. I thought my job was done, and I barely pulled in my driveway when he called and said, the governor wants more names. Would I consider it and give him an answer by Monday? And so I gave it thought over the weekend. I didn't even know what the salary or the benefits were, and but there wasn't a tight turnaround, and felt like it was something I should do. It's a governance model that exists nowhere else in the United States, and so there wasn't a lot to hang your hat on, but it gave me an opportunity to help create a process there that has this year we're recognized for our transit agency size as the best transit agency in America. So I feel like we've made some good progress.
Mayor McAdams, later to be Congressman McAdams, has made a lot of good choices. And I must admit, when I got that communication back from him that the governor wanted to go a different direction and that it was you, I thought, now that is a good decision.
Well, that's very nice of you.
It's a good decision.
And I'm Republican. Ben is Democrat. He always wanted a bipartisan kind of thing, and to be honest, a good government should be that way.
Anymore that is good government, but it seems that both sides of the Democrat or Republican, those that have dialogue and those that find common ground right now, get punished by both their parties.
Yeah, I don't envy him at all, and it's unfortunate because those are usually the most effective.
There's no doubt about it. And Ben really was that a type of individual. He had relationships, and came out with some really good decisions. I want to jump into the 2002 Winter Olympics. What an opportunity to be on the city council at the time that we have an event like that coming to Salt Lake City. What was your experience with that?
It was an interesting time frame. I call it the scandal, but when things kind of went awry and things looked a little bit bleak, and to be honest, as host cities, we were having a hard time negotiating what the terms of that host city agreement looked like for venue cities, and then 9/11 happened. I actually was away. I was supposed to fly home that day. I was at a conference for the city, and what went from 6 months of not finally getting to anything, when we came back, we all realized if we didn't get on board and figure out a common grounds, that there was no way for it to be successful. So within less than 30 days, we'd figured out those agreements. We did the best that we could, and it really was life-changing for me to experience that and to have it be successful, and to have it be something that the state as a whole and the nation, particularly in the wake of, a little bit emotional, but
Yes.
But particularly in the wake of 9/11, to be able to come together for the competition of sports and as countries from around the world. And Mayor Anderson was gracious enough to give us tickets to the opening and closing ceremonies and to experience that and to just experience what was happening within the community.
It was such an interesting time period for us because even the thought of, do you have an Olympics at that point? And then to come, we had the scandal broken by one of our local reporters, Chris Van Oker. And I don't know that he really knew what he was holding up in his hand when he had come across that there may have been somebody that had received a scholarship or some funds that was on the selection committee. And then moving to Mitt Romney and having a individual come in that just absolutely got things done and was able to pull off the games in a welcoming community that had a level of volunteerism that just was unmatched.
And I was up for election in 2001. Not sure if I actually went through the volunteer process, ended up being a volunteer for the Paralympic Games because I got elected, ran unopposed, but decided I wanted to be able to do that. I think that was reflective of a lot of people in this community that just didn't want to miss that opportunity.
I had an advantage. Is in that my brother was co-chair with Thurgood Marshall Jr. on behalf of the executive branch. Therefore, he got 2 tickets to everything, and so he gave me one of them.
Well, I was going to say I actually met him on a visit in the White House, and was so gracious, definitely proud of Utah, and was a great asset to us in those formative years.
Take a moment and picture in your mind igniting your child's journey to lifelong success from an early age. With Yes, Our Kids Can, this vision becomes a reality right from preschool. Don't miss this chance to shape your child's path towards extraordinary success. Enroll in the Yes, Our Kids Can University now and witness the remarkable impact it can have on your child's growth and development. Secure your child's bright future today. Sign up now by clicking the link below. Then we have from 2002, and we definitely got a ton of money poured into our capital city, our freeways, bridges, venues. We ended up getting light rail finished up to the University of Utah. We ended up getting Fort Douglas turned over to the Olympic Committee and then into a student house. A lot of stuff got done. And then we get the opportunity of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints deciding to pour in about $3 billion in redeveloping downtown. And that had to be in coordination with our city administration. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
You know, it was because I worked for them at the time, I actually ended up changing my job to help that project move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the two malls were outdated that
Mm-hmm.
existed there. Clearly, the way people experience the city streetscape changed. And going through, and there was lively discussion. You mentioned Mayor Anderson, and
Yes.
there was definitely, he had some points, and we had some points. And at the end of the day, I think it brought us to a better product. And when you see and it was at a critical time because in the wake of the financial meltdown of 2008, you know, there were a lot of people out of jobs, and really the construction of the construction of I-15, actually the construction that the Utah Transit Authority
Right.
was doing, kept a lot of people employed.
And we look at it, there's not a community that gets to have a 2002 Winter Olympics and then gets the downtown rebuilt at the cost of not government,
Yeah, but of private investment.
of a private investment. And, you know, I was talking to, I sat on a board with Bishop Burton, and I got in the conversation. I said, well, how was it working with Rocky Anderson? And he said, I love Rocky.
Yeah.
And I said, really? How's that? And he says, we ended up going through a very tough exchange, but we ended up with a better product. And if we had not done that, we would have ended up spending money unwisely. Yeah. And so I'll always be thankful. Then I see them in a private exchanges, and I love it when people from different places look at a problem. A problem is not a Democrat or a Republican. A problem is a problem, and you have problem solvers come to the table. That's when you see government work at its best.
Well, and good outcomes are not usually, you know, rubber stamps. They are conversations that go back and forth, and at the end of the day, you do get a better product. And I think that's, without question, that's happened, and it was a huge jump starter to the remaining renovation or rejuvenation of downtown.
Then you know, as if you know that's enough. Then we get the international airport rebuilt from ground up. And I was on the board of the Salt Lake International Airport at the same time that you were. And I got a chance to work with you on a monthly basis. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, you know, it went through a lot of, as you know, some start and stops, and the aviation industry struggled from time to time. But what came out of that really was a better airport. When I was concluding my service, the airport was debt-free. It was sitting on, I think, a little over $400 million in cash, and probably gained a little bit, and put it at a great point for its, construction and renovation. And because a lot of lessons were learned over that course of the time, operationally, it's a very efficient airport. From a per-plane passenger standpoint, it's helpful for the airline industry. And I don't think anybody who uses their facilities, from restrooms to restaurants, it's really unmatched. And I travel a little bit. I bet you travel a lot more, but it's really unmatched anywhere in the nation. And it has the ability to grow. And because of decisions way back in the 1970s where they bought additional land, we were able to keep the airport fundamentally in the location of the current old airport.
And just to have one running simultaneously as we build a completely new one. And basically, people say, well, what's wrong with the old one? And I believe that that most of the folks didn't realize if we had a level 7 earthquake, that airport would collapse.
Yeah.
And if that occurred, what would that do? The economy of Salt Lake would be very damaging.
Well, and even this was learned in Katrina and other places. Your airport is a critical piece to the restoration of a place, not to mention the economics of it. And so it was an investment that needed to be made, and it was really magnified in the way that it was done. I'm so happy when I walk through there to see its success.
And then we look at about a $3 billion project.
Yeah.
And again, this is not local money being spent.
No.
So we get a third blessing in the way that it's going to help in the economic development of our city and jobs.
Well, in the way Salt Lake Airport is structured, we as residents really control how that airport is managed and constructed in a unique way. And as a consequence, we're able to maintain the quality of it, which will really serve passengers well into the future.
It's a beautiful place. And if you are coming into Salt Lake, because it's a hub of Delta, and you're going to have a layover for an hour, 2 hours, you've got choices to dine.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just
a
splendid.
lot of local options as well, so that people can get a flavor of what exists in the nearby community.
When people found out that you were part of the airport board, and they think that we had a bigger role in the development of it than we actually did, we were certainly involved. But when I go into the connection of the C core or the B concourse to the main concourse, and people didn't realize those tunnels had been built, and the second one, which is now as you enter it, couldn't open until that gateway had been built. But boy, did people want to tell me, you guys really, I said, you got to wait until it's all the way complete.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
now it's fine.
I mean, everybody got their steps in for sure.
Yeah.
But the new tunnel is also unmatched from an ambiance experience.
Beautiful.
And anyway, it's going to be a great facility well into the future.
Have you ever dreamed that the Delta Lounge would be too small?
I never imagined that it would ever be that way, and that they would need a second lounge. And then the other piece that I have been amazed at is the number of international flights that they have added more recently. I think they were thinking ahead when they added international gates. I'm wondering if they have enough gates now for what they have coming.
Well, if that's not enough, then we move on to the Utah Transit Authority. And we look at the Utah Transit Authority, it's looked at probably in a different way than it would be looked at if it was going forward today, in that it had to be inclusive. And you would hope that would always be that way, no matter what politics was, whatever. But you've done something with your board and the leadership that is way different than anywhere else in the nation. Would you talk about that?
Sure. As you look at the history of the Utah Transit Authority, it had a few years that were troubled.
Sure.
And we were actually at one point under a non-prosecutorial agreement with the Department of Justice when I started in 2018. The legislature changed its governance from a 16-member part-time board to a 3 full-time board of trustees. When I showed up in that first week, I said, what did the legislature mirror this after? What were they looking at? And they did a little research, and there just wasn't anything. And so as we formulated those early policies, those early processes, everything associated with that governance, also cleaning up some of the issues that were still lingering, I thought about it in the long term as, what if I wasn't there? What am I doing that will make this a sustainable model into the future? And bit by bit, we've improved its finances. We've improved some of our debt obligations. Last year, we're fundamentally back to pre-pandemic levels of ridership, which is almost unmatched in the entire country. And last year, we, through all our modes, carried nearly 40 million people or 40 million rides on our system. And then this year, by our National Trade Association, was recognized as the Transit Agency of the Year. So I feel good in those 6.5 years to get us from a point of being under the thumb of the Department of Justice to the
Yes.
Transit Agency of the Year.
Yes.
So a lot of work's taken place.
Yes, that and the greatest thing is about that's not even in our memory bank anymore.
No,
And that's a good thing.
one of the things that I recognized when I first came is that our employees took a lot of pride in their work.
Mm-hmm.
They took a lot of pride in what they could do. A half a dozen sort of bad apples, if you will, caused some challenges. But I knew if we worked through it, that the core product of what we produce would stand out. And it not only has, but we've added more employees. We have 3,000 employees. We're within the top 50 employers in the state, and producing good service. And to your point, people have given us a very positive response.
Now, even to the point of the Martin Luther King, I believe it was 2023. You received an award. Tell us, why was that so? What was it about?
Well, when I was on the city council, one of the most meaningful things that I did at the request of the NAACP was to rename 200 East as Rosa Parks Boulevard, and on behalf of them and their recommendations. And so for a few years later, to be asked by the same chapter and to be given the Martin Luther King Jr. Award was really personally very rewarding, and a recognition of public service and commitment to having justice and fairness. And I think when I started my political career, people had me characterized in one particular way. And even when I left office, some of my colleagues did this interview. A lot of them didn't. It wasn't intentional, but they all started out with, I didn't think I'd really get along with Carlton, but we became good friends. And it has just reminded me that how we treat one another, how we have respect for one another, how we respect difference of opinions has a profound impact on us and on our lives.
And it's, I long for the time that we had the level of leadership in a city council position that we had while you were there. We had some really good quality leaders. Keith
Christensen,
Dave
Bueller, Jill Love.
Yeah, I mean,
we had a Van Turner, local business owner. We were, and there were a number of other ones that I served with 22 different city council members, and we had great love, and it's not a disrespect or anything to any current, but I was very fortunate to be there at a time of a very talented
The one
group.
thing that I will say as a leadership coach, and not only do I teach, I do what I teach in the companies that I run, but one of the things you recognize is those kinds of positions are supposed to be specialized talent component additions. And the one thing that we did have, each one of you had a talent that you bring to the board. I don't believe that level of leadership is currently there. It doesn't mean that it can't be, and it doesn't mean that you can't learn it, but we're not starting at the same level of leadership experience, and that's hurt our city.
Well, I'll leave that to your judgment. And
now that's why you were elected and I wasn't.
but I think as you look together and you work together, you certainly learned. I learned through the experience, but as you point out, you bring your skills to the conversation, and I think recognize and respect, eventually gets you to a good place.
Yes. Problem solving is problem solving. Yeah. I want to move to a conversation, and I had no idea that Clayton was your brother.
Yeah.
And I read a book early on. I think it was Innovation.
The Innovator's Dilemma.
Yeah, Dilemma.
Was his first book.
And I remember there was a portion in the book that it talked about purpose. And it talked about seeing the destination in which you wanted to go. But then Clayton said, don't forget to look left and right along your travel, because sometimes it's there you find your next big idea, and it's not necessarily a straight path to what you want.
Yeah.
Be observant. And he kind of changed the way that businesses looked at it and kind of introduced, be your own disruptor.
Yeah.
Reinvent yourself.
Yeah, he and I would chat frequently, and so often, people think that innovation is the next level of technology or something, but it's only innovative if it's making it cheaper and simpler to do.
Right.
And sometimes, as you look to the side, you see he termed it jobs to be done, but you see an unmet job, and with what he would phrase as a market of non-consumption, meaning people don't know that they could value that in their life, and I think you could go back on a number of things and see how people said, well, where did that come from? Mm-hmm. And it's them looking to the side and realizing there's just, it made whatever they came up with made it easier and simpler for that person to accomplish the job they were looking to be
when
done.
I found out that he was your brother, I wasn't surprised because of the quality of both of you. But man, what does that say about your upbringing?
Well, I'm the youngest of 8. He's number 2. There's some successful siblings in that mix. I often still joke. He's a lot smarter than I am, but I'm a whole lot better looking. And so,
both very accomplished. But
we had great parents, and very fortunate, who taught us to think.
Well, I tell you what, I've always been blessed by having a relationship of an older brother that is highly successful as well. As you know, Mickey is had his he's the rock star of our family, and I always enjoyed watching someone go first along that path. It gives you the confidence of finding your own path. While they're not the same, they both have value, and your brother and you bring value to this state and to this nation. And I want to thank you for being on our program today.
Thanks for the invitation.
And I'd like to end by giving you a copy of my new book, Live Ready, Beyond Think and Grow Rich. And this is a modern version of Dr. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book, which I am a disciple of his work, and I'm the largest licensee of his work in the world now.
Well, thank you, and thanks for your contribution to this community, David.